What's up, everyone? It's Andrea. Today, Worf explores his spiritual side. It doesn't go super well for him, and we ask the question, who cares? Come nerd out with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Today, we're talking Season 6, Episode 23, Rightful Heir. This episode was written by James E. Brooks and directed by Heinrich Kolb. At the Klingon monastery on Boreth, Worf sees a very real vision of Kahless the Unforgettable. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah, so I think you can tell by Andrea's enthusiasm how she feels about this particular episode. You know, my initial thoughts were like, I just said, I don't remember this one. Like, I'm looking at the thumbnail, I'm reading the description, I'm looking at some pictures. I'm like, I just don't remember this one. But what I did write is, I really hope this is not another Duras episode. Like, can we just move on to a different storyline?
Yes.
Like, we had that, we did that, we finished that. Like, let's move on. We had the Kittimer stuff, which which were my favorite Worf episodes. I really like those.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if we're doing another Klingon episode, is it going to be a continuation of that storyline? Like, what happened to those kids? You know, that could be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Are they fitting in? Are they not? Do they resent Worf for coming to their planet? Like, what's going on with them? Like, but I had no recollection of this episode. And 10 minutes in, I had no recollection of this episode. And 42 minutes in, I had no recollection. I feel like I've never in my life seen this episode. So this was a new one for me. What were your initial thoughts?
I had no idea what this episode was about, but the thumbnail did not inspire confidence. More Klingon culture stuff, total snooze. And then my second initial thought was, does Paramount Plus have 1.5x or 2x yet? No? God damn it. Yeah. Honestly, I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. I don't care for the Klingons, okay? I don't care for their culture, and I feel really weird saying that. Like, the Klingon Anti-Defamation League is going to come after me for saying that or something, but I'm like, wait, they don't even exist. But I've always found them really one-dimensional, just these, like, savage warriors who prize, like, honor and spilling blood over anything else, like...
You know, it's funny. I feel the same way about Vulcans. Like, I don't have anything against Klingons, but I feel the same way about Vulcans. Like, I don't want to hear about Vulcan. I don't want to see Vulcan. I don't want to go to Vulcan. I don't want to talk about Vulcans. Like, I feel that same way where they feel very one note, which I think was the idea when they were created in the original series, was they were supposed to be one note. But now that we're in TNG era and we're developing different characters and meeting new aliens and stuff, it's like now we have this weird place where it's like, if we're going to use characters from the original series, we have to make them more than they were or not use them. We have to come up with new aliens so that we can give them backgrounds and goals and values and stuff like that to make them whole people. So this transition is, I mean, at least the Klingons do get more depth. I think the Vulcans get a little more in Voyager and then like way more in Discovery and stuff. But honestly, every time I see them, I'm like, I still don't care. I get what you're saying. Like, I don't have anything against the Klingons, but I totally get what you're saying when there's an alien species where you're like, them again, huh? And a whole episode of them.
I know. You know what? If we could listen.
I feel the same way about Romulans also, except for they're sneaky. So they at least give some interest in
They're interesting. I think Romulans are more interesting because they're always like working with subterfuge.
They're clever.
And you're like, what are you up to?
They're clever. Vulcans are not. I mean, they're smart, but Vulcans are very Vulcan.
They're just
and Klingons
robots,
are very Klingon. Like,
just, I mean, if we could dispense with the TOS aliens, if I never saw another Klingon, another Vulcan again, even another Romulan, why not?
Yeah.
Fine. Because now we've got Bolians. We've got the aliens that have that super cool, the blue with the steam coming up out of their face. Like, there are so, last week we met Joe Brill, who's a Takaran, who can, you know, their race can like,
we've got Beta Zeds. We've got
so many other cool aliens. Do we need more Klingon fuckery?
And like,
no,
I don't mind finding out more about Worf. I want to find out more about him as a character. And can we do that without going to the Klingon homeworld? Can we do that without, can we do it in any other context? Which, because like, whenever we do a Troy episode, we don't have to go back to Beta Z.
We've never been to Beta Z.
No, we haven't. And we don't have to go back to that. So anyways, all that to say is, this may be a short episode because basically the synopsis that Andrea read is really what happens. Like Kalis comes back, which is crazy. Like if you think about this, a religious leader coming back is really crazy.
Yeah,
and then
it's like your Messiah coming back.
Yes, the Messiah comes back.
Yeah.
And then it's like, is he real or is he not? And then how does that affect society moving forward, which would be huge, right? So the idea behind it, I think, is really, really good. But I think similar to last week, this episode could have really benefited from a B plot, which was what you said off mic, Andrea. Like if we had a B plot,
girl, I would have killed for a crappy B plot. I would have killed for a season 1 B plot. Like there's an epidemic raging on some other homeworld. See you in a week, Worf. Bye. Yeah, like
are we gonna get there in time?
Yeah, Beverly's got to make an antidote. Yeah, but everybody's got the drunk virus. That would have been like I would watch that episode 100 times over this one.
No, you wouldn't. Oh, over this one. Okay.
Yeah, over this one. Yeah. The Naked Now, give that one to me all day, every day. And so like this one, I'm like, Rightful, what? Anyway, the episode opens though with the day shift coming in for the day, and Worf hasn't shown up for his shift. So Riker's like, this isn't like him. Like, computer, locate Worf. And it's like, oh, he's in his quarters. And
so he immediately takes security, which is like,
I love that Riker knows Worf because he's like, something's wrong. He's got a whole ass security detail rendezvous at Worf's quarters, which I was like, this is the first smart thing I've seen security do all series.
Yes.
Series. Okay.
Agreed.
And then, another nice thing is little mystery solved. Riker is able to override the security lock. So he's like, computer, override the lock. Riker,
because we've seen Worf do that before.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen anyone else do it. So it makes sense that Riker can do it, that Beverly should be able to do it.
Yeah.
And Picard should be able to do it. Like, Guinan probably doesn't need that power.
And maybe Troy. Yeah. Senior staff need that.
Yeah. But senior staff probably, when they go to check on somebody and they can't get them, they need to have some kind of override access
something.
Code.
Yeah. Now we find Worf, basically his room is all candled up. He's gone to Pottery Barn and bought every candle they've got. And he is like praying and chanting. And they're like, what the hell are you doing? And he looks up and he's all shaky and he's also cross-eyed.
He is cross-eyed.
Wow, that was
I put Riker finds Worf undergoing a dark, fiery ritual that also gives him cross eyes.
Wow, that was a way better note. I was like, he's shaky and cross-eyed. And sweating from all the candles.
He's doing this dark, fiery ritual, which looks absolutely amazing. Like his whole place is filled with candles. And then in front of him is a big like bonfire. And it's so beautiful in those quarters. And it looks like he's in some dark cave. And you can tell he's doing a ritual, which I didn't know because I didn't remember this episode. I was like, did an alien kidnap him in his sleep like we've seen before?
Yeah, like what's going on?
And then he's like, oh no, he's awake. And then it's like, you see he's cross-eyed and you're like, uh-oh, something wrong with his brain. And you're like, I don't know what happened. And then in the next scene, we see him in his uniform, in his quarters, laying in bed, looking really melancholy. So you're like, oh, I guess he was fine. And
he's just, angsty.
He's okay.
Picard comes to see him and he's like, what the hell was all of that? And what I thought was very out of character is Worf is laying in bed, sort of like propped up on his elbows, and he's just kind of reclining and very angsty. And the doorbell rings a few times, and he's like, enter. So he calls out enter from the bed. He never gets up, which I was like, that's not like Worf. But then it's Captain Picard that walks in, and Worf sees Captain Picard come in and doesn't get out of the prone position to like receive him. And I was like, this is not like Worf at all.
Yes, exactly. None of that, like him missing his duty shift, him not responding. He actually does sit up. But he doesn't stand up. He just like he goes from laying to
he's
sitting.
Like, oh, it's you. Yeah, it's
and he's like, oh, Captain. And Picard's not having any of that. He's like, oh, your feet, Lieutenant. And you're like, ooh, he's got some fire. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's absolutely right.
He's still the daddy of this ship. Okay, you get up for him.
He's still the space daddy.
Picard is the ultimate space daddy, and Pedro Pascal. But
yes, and Pedro Pascal. We need some new T-shirts, people. So I don't know where I would wear Ultimate Space Daddy to exactly. I mean, where wouldn't I wear it? Grocery shopping,
WonderCon,
everywhere,
Comic-Con, the park, anywhere.
Yes, school, work, everywhere. So Worf jumps up, and you're like, yeah, he's just so out of character. And Picard's not having any of it, but he also is he's really understanding and really calm, but he's also demanding Worf act with excellence. And this whole scene, like this was my favorite scene of this whole entire episode. And I would watch this scene over and over because I just thought it was a really beautiful look into the relationship. But he yells at him, he gets on his feet, and he's like, I don't usually bother with the crew's personal affairs unless it gets in the way of their duties, which is what's going on with you. So tell me what's up. And Worf admits that he just really, after he rescued those Klingons that we were just talking about from Kittimer, he just like he saw their faith get kindled for the first time because he told them all their old stories and stuff because their parents didn't. And so he started thinking about it for himself. And he was like, I don't think I ever really believed these stories, though. It's just part of my culture, but not really part of my faith. So he feels like he's lost his faith and he's lost his way. He feels really empty. And, you know, faith, I know Andrea is not a person of faith, but I am, or of religious faith, I should say. But I am. And I do know that it gives people, like, you get a lot of values from your faith. Faith teaches values. Not that you need faith to have values, but my point is it teaches some guiding principles of how to treat other people and yada, yada. So losing your faith is bigger than I don't do these practices anymore. It's now like, well, how do I see the world? What is right? What is wrong? What is the way I should treat people? How is my life meaningful? Does it matter? Do other people's lives matter? Like, it's these big existential questions when you've lost kind of your guiding light, which is how Worf is feeling right now. And he's just like so lost. And Picard can see that in his eyes and in the conversation. And he is, he's really understanding. And he says, you know what? He says, maybe being on the ship is not the right place for you to explore these questions. Where could you do it? And then he says, well, there's like kind of like a Mecca, like a holy place for Klingons, which this is our first time finding out about this, but it's a planet called Boreth. Yeah. And so he's like, yeah, that's the place that I would go to really get some like spiritual clarity. So Picard goes, well, it's only a 12-day shuttle flight from here. So as of right now, you're on leave. You know, go and find your answers. And Worf is just like so grateful. And then he goes, but by the way, when you step foot back on this ship, I expect you to behave like a Starfleet officer.
Yeah,
and
he's better like, get it together.
Yes, sir. And then he's like, I wish you the best. It was very good cop, bad cop. And I put in my notes, this Picard was the perfect blend of salty and sweet. Called, you know, in food and fast food.
He was like peanut brittle. It's like sweet, salty, crunchy.
In fast food, there's this amount of salty and sweet that's created to get people to crave more and more, like McDonald's fries or whatever. There's this.
Oh, that's interesting.
This blend, and it's actually called the bliss point, because when you've got this mixture of salty and sweet, it just like melts on your tongue and lights up all the like endorphin-y things in your brain. So I felt like that right here. I felt like this for Picard was just like the bliss point. You get this like stern, I'm expecting the best from you, and I want what's best for you. And it just was beautiful. Like, adopt me.
I know. So, well, a couple things. One, I love that Worf is telling Picard about the Klingons on Khitomer or at the camp. After he assured those Klingons he would never mention anything he saw or did there. And I was like, wow, you kind of gave that up fast.
No, but
even at the end of the episode, Picard was like, did you find anything? He's like, no, there is no camp. There's no one there. And then he's like, yeah, so remember a couple weeks ago when I went to the Carrios system, I ended up meeting a bunch of Klingons and stoking their beliefs. And now I feel really empty. Like, he's just trying to recapture that good old Klingon feeling, like since he left the camp. And but he's not finding it here.
He didn't say the camp, though. He said whatever planet he pretended he found them on. Something Rigel 4, whatever it was called. That's not what it's called, but whatever it's called.
I think he said the Klingons I met in the Carrios system. And I was like, Carrios system's kind of a cool name.
Yeah. And Picard was like, oh, the Klingons that you rescued. And he was like, yes, you know, when I found them, they didn't know anything about our culture. And so I told them blah, blah. So he still didn't mention the older Klingons and where he really got them from. But he did tell the truth about the kids he transported onto the Enterprise of like, they, you know, I kindled something in them that kind of stirred in me the fact that that fire's been absent maybe for my whole life. And my thinking in this scene, other than the bliss point of Picard, my other thinking was 12 days in a shuttle.
I know.
I thought there in 15 minutes. Just drop him off, man. Drop him off with a shuttle, but you could drop him off.
I thought the same thing where Picard was like, Borath. It's only 12 days in a shuttlecraft. Go ahead and I'm going to put you on leave and go do your journey of discovery.
So we're like
12 days alone in a shuttlecraft?
So now he's got to be on leave for like 3 months in order to make the 12-day shuttle journey there. Plus, he's got to find the Enterprise when he's done.
What? Yeah, I just thought the whole thing was really stupid. I was like, 12 if he said it's only 12 hours in a shuttlecraft, I was like, well,
or also, 2 days or something.
I also love that Picard was like, yes, it's 12 days away. He knew how far something was in shuttle terms. I was like, really?
Some random planet in whatever random place the Enterprise was at in that moment.
I guess what's her name in stellar cartography really taught him some stuff, because he was like, we're 42 and a half hours away from this. Yeah, in a shuttlecraft. What the hell are you gonna do in 12 days?
But if you go by torpedo, it's this long.
Yeah, if you do the Kahless version, yeah. You just torpedo yourself there.
So I guess
he 15 minutes.
Yeah, he takes a 12-day shuttle ride there. Okay. And when we see Borath, it is just, I loved it. It's just this beautiful, icy, like palace thing. I don't know. It just was a really cool set. And I just love the snow and stuff. And they paused on it for like long enough for you to appreciate it. I felt like when Wesley went to the academy, like back in season 1 or whatever, that first time when he took the test and didn't get in.
Yeah.
Like we only saw the city for like a second. And then it was like, boom, and we're on the city. But here they like sat on it for just a couple more seconds for you to take it in. And I appreciated that. So then I didn't have to rewind. I got a second to be like, ooh, it's snow. And then we were in the cave and we never see it again. And the cave seems really hot and sweaty. And I'm like, maybe I'll take the outside. It feels
like it smells really bad. I don't know. There's a lot of fire and a lot of sweaty people.
And plus caves don't smell great in general.
Caves do not smell great. I'll tell you, Worf and others are chanting over fire in the cave. And this young Klingon has a vision of Kahless. And Worf is like,
so jealous, right?
Damn it. Yes, because it's been 10 days. He's had no vision, no insight, nothing.
So this has been a 22-day quest.
At least, right? He might have detoured somewhere to like grab snackies or whatever. God only knows how long he's been in that. The 4 years have passed. Okay. He wants to leave, but one of the Klingon elders, who I call like the high priest, gives him a pep talk about
he is the high priest.
Promise. The promise of Kahless, this Messiah said he would one day return. It's been 15 centuries. So they say like roughly 1,000 years. And so they're like, we've been waiting 1,000 years. Yeah. What's 10 days in the span of 1,000-year wait? Like, just give it one more day. And so he goes back to the fire and is chanting, and Kahless appears to Worf. But there's this other kid who's also like mopping Worf's brow as he's sweating and chanting for 2 days straight or whatever.
It's the same kid who saw Kahless in the first place in his vision, who stormed off.
Yes.
So why is this kid still here? You saw your vision, man. Get out of here.
Yeah. There's other people in line waiting to come in. But
other people need visions too.
The other kid in the chamber also sees Kahless and like runs out to like get the elder. So it's like, oh my God, he's real.
Are not shared, I would imagine. They're just visions to the individual person about what they're individually going through. But if they both saw Kahless at the same moment, it's like, how strong is this fire?
What is going on? I know. What is in this smoke that we're inhaling? Turns out it's been 15 centuries and the Klingon fashion hasn't changed a day, apparently, because he's wearing exactly what everybody's wearing.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. It's gorgeous.
I mean, it is cool, and I give tons of props to like the costumers who like obviously you have to make those.
But you wanted him to look more old-timey.
Or something, because like look at fashion from like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? Like our clothing still fits. Like we all have legacy pieces where I'm like, it would have been, because I'm like, you're dressed like a modern day Klingon, or modern Klingons just dressed like we all did 1,000 years ago. Like, what? I thought, dear God, Kahless, get thee to a dentist, because the tooth rot that man had my teeth hurt just looking at his mouth. And they did a lot of like close-ups of him talking like this, and I was like, I don't need to see those janky busted old teeth. Like, no, I didn't even
notice. That's so funny.
That girl, his teeth were all like black and gray and like mangled.
Maybe that was his old-timey touch. Back in olden times, they didn't have toothpaste on Klingon. Maybe. I mean, that tracks, right? I don't know. But in any case.
But this whole time, like all these people rush over and they're like, oh my God, what is this? How is this possible? You know? And so Kahless goes on to like tell this story of how he forged the original bat'leth from some hair he threw into a river of lava, which I was like, that sounds ridiculous enough to be like mythology, where it's like, you know, I love Greek mythology, but it's always like Zeus was in love with this maiden. So he transformed himself into a bull and charmed her. It's like, okay, this is the story. Okay. So he threw some hair into some lava and you twisted it into a bat'leth, but all right. But
the bat'leths look really cool. But yeah, so he tells a story.
Look cool.
He tells a story, and the elder's like, how did you know that? Korath is like, how did you know that? Only the high priests know that. We've passed that story down from generation to generation as a proof that it's something only Kahless would know. No one else, like the normal populace, doesn't know this story. We keep it as a secret. Kind of like in a crime when they keep something back from the public, so that way they can tell who the real killer is or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then everyone's like, well, that's good enough for me. He's Kahless. And they all start bowing down, which makes sense because they came here for Kahless. So now they seek.
And so like, here he is. Yeah.
This totally like answers every question and prayer they've ever had, except for Worf, which I thought was so interesting because he seemed to be working the hardest to try to find a vision. And then Kahless appears to him and he's the first one to be like, nope.
Well, see, listen, Kahless. I'm going to tell, this is I think, a really great representation of what, like, I'm not religious. So the like Jesus is coming back one day kind of stuff. It's like, okay, so imagine even if you're a believer and somebody appears and they're like, okay, so I'm Jesus, I've come back. The first thing you would say is like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Like,
prove it.
Right?
Yeah.
Prove it. Yeah. And he'd be like, so I threw some hair into a river of lava and I made this sword. And everybody's like, oh my God. I would be like poking and prodding and I'd be tricordering like Worf was. I'd be like, no. Something.
Yeah.
This is just, why now of all times?
Yes.
Why did you just suddenly appear?
It's so interesting because, so I am a Christian. It's really interesting because a lot of people do that from time to time. They say, I am Jesus. I'm the second coming of Jesus. And nobody ever believes them.
Nobody ever believes them.
Nobody ever believes them. But they usually have mental health problems and they think they're Jesus. And it's really, but like, there are other people that a lot of Christians do fall for, like in cults and stuff, who don't claim to be Jesus, but for some reason can convince a whole group of people to kill themselves, right? Which is like the most control you could ever have over another human being. Yeah. And they don't even claim to be Jesus. They're just so charismatic and believable and stuff. And so it's like, we would believe random Joe Schmo with charisma over somebody saying, hi, I'm Jesus. Any day, even people of faith would fall for somebody like that, a false prophet over falling. You know what I mean? So it is kind of interesting that these people, and obviously this story of Kahless returning is lifted directly from Christianity, and they're trying to make it more spacey. But it is interesting that no one had any doubts but Worf. Like, everyone should doubt. Everyone should want some proof. It's been 1,000 years.
Smattering of doubt would be good.
Yeah, just proof, just some proof. And nobody does. But again, like I said, in this context, maybe it makes sense because they were all in the cave looking for Kahless. But when Gowron comes a little bit later, he's like, nah, I don't care what you say. I don't believe this. Like, he comes with like what all the Klingons should be thinking of, like, you know, sure, it's possible, whatever, but we need some actual proof. We're not going to take your pinky promise. Like, and just because you look like the painting,
I swear I am him.
Yeah, we still need some more proof than that. But everybody believes, and Worf is not having any of it, which I just was like, wow.
You know what? They end up like battling over their bathlets, and I was like, why? And then Kahless is like, ha ha ha, we are Klingons. And everybody starts chanting, we are Klingons. And I just wrote, oh, can this be over already?
This is probably like 10 minutes into the episode. So there's so much more episode left. Yes, they have this fight because Worf challenges him. Oh, that's why, because Worf is like, he says something like, Worf, you still don't believe in me, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then Worf says something like, I just want proof, or something like that. And then he's like, well, leader, he said, I just want answers, right? I've got a lot of questions, and it's like wise to ask questions. Some kind of saying about it's wise to ask questions. And Kahless says, not when it comes to your leader. You just obey without question. You do anything they say. If they tell you to die, you die, da. And then Worf says, only if you actually trust your commander. It's only if your commander earns your trust. And that's when Kahless is like, what you say to me, boy? And picks up a batleth and is like, them's fighting words. And so then Worf picks up a batleth and they start fighting, presumably to the death, because it didn't look like they were fighting to slightly harm. It looked like they were fighting to kill. But then Kahless stops and starts laughing. And then he says, we are Klingon. And he does a whole speech about how fighting is not just fighting and drawing blood, but it's about restoring honor. It's about enriching the Klingon spirit and all these deep things that fighting really means.
I'm rolling my eyes so hard.
She really is. I can vouch for that. And so then next thing you know, we're back on the Enterprise. So I guess they decided to save Worf the 12-day shuttle back. And they're
like, we'll be there in 4 minutes. Get your things ready.
Seriously. And they have been asked by Gowron, who is the head of the council on the Empire of Klingon. They've been asked to transport Kahless to them so they could like check out his story or whatever. So they're in the observation lounge and everyone's kind of kicking around the possibilities of who this person could really be. And Worf points out, like, the only option we haven't talked about is he could really be Kahless. And everybody in the room rolls their eyes as big as Andrea and they go, yeah, but he's not though. And Picard's just like, look, everybody, this is not about, we're not here to do an investigation. We're not here to prove anything.
Beverly
from last week. And we're not here to tell anybody what to believe. Riker. We are just here to transport this man from point A to point B. And he is our guest, and that is all. So next thing you know, we have this really cool shot of the Klingon ship in space. Yeah. And again, they really sat on it. And they like did these angles of the ship. And I was totally mesmerized. I was like, this is beautiful.
Well done, Weinrich Cole.
Beautiful. Man, yeah. So we get this great shot. And then Gowron comes on board and he starts grilling Picard instantly about all the tests that they must have performed to prove that this man is a fraud. And Picard repeats what he told the senior staff, like, and do any of those tests. He's just a guest. If you want to do those tests, that's up to you. Like that is your thing.
Out. Yeah.
Which I agree with. I'm like, why are you even on my ship? Take him. Get him out of here. Like, this is the whole political mess.
This is not my problem at all.
Has nothing to do with me.
Yep.
But for some reason, Picard is the one to go to Kahless to tell him that Gowron wants to run some tests. Mm-hmm. And again, why is Picard doing this? This is a Klingon thing between Klingons about Klingon stuff. Picard's job should be done.
By Kahless.
Yes. So what they do is they have this sword in the chamber somewhere, and it has Kahless in the Chamber of Secrets, and it's got the blood of Kahless on it. Yeah. As dangerous as a basilisk. And so Beverly's going to like scan the blood on the blade and scan the blood of this man. And if they match, then they're both Kahless. And I thought, because I didn't remember this episode at all, I was like, oh, he's totally like a con man. And I was like, oh man, the game's up right now. Mm-hmm. But Beverly scans it and the blood matches.
It's a perfect match.
And I was like, huh? So then I'm like, did somebody steal the sword? Or like, is the sword fake? Or I'm like, something's not right.
What is going on here? Yeah. Which actually in the observation lounge, a few scenes before, that's when Beverly is like, you know, he could be a bioreplicant, he could be a clone, he could be a coalescent being cosplaying as a Klingon, you know, from like Aquiel. So it's like and I love that it's a throwback to Aquiel, but they're not like, remember that dumbass episode? Like, they don't shove it down your throat like that episode from 6 weeks ago. Yeah, no, it's just like, it could be a coalescent being who's like masquerading as a Klingon. It could be a whole bunch of stuff. So even we are like, yeah, no, this is odd. However, Kayla seems to know a bunch of stuff. Even in the caves down on Borath, he's like, Worf, why do you doubt me? And Worf hadn't told him his name yet. So he's like, well, how do you know my name? And he's like, well, I came to you in a vision when you were a boy. And like, you said this and I said that. And Worf is like, how the hell do you know this? Like, that kind of stuff.
Did he know that?
Exactly. Well, but I was like, wow, that really lends a lot of credibility to Kahless's like story, claims. Which I was like, man, yeah. So it's a perfect match. So Worf finally believes. He's like, oh my God, I called the Messiah.
Hey. Yeah. So then he's like, hey, Kahless, let's share some like Klingon drink or whatever, some war wine or something. And so they're drinking this, and he's like, Kahless is like, I don't remember what food and drink tastes like since I haven't had any in 15,000 years or whatever. So he's like, this, it just doesn't, it's fine, but I just don't remember it. And Worf's like, yeah, okay. I mean, it's replicated, so maybe that's why the taste is a little off or whatever. Yeah. And he doesn't really give it too much thought. And he invites Worf to partner with him to restore the honor of the Empire. He's like, people are kind of in moral decay. And I have come back to steer them, to show them the right way. And I want you by my side, Worf. And I was just like, that is a powerful request, right? From this spiritual leader to say, I want you to be my right-hand person is like, how could Worf say no? Huge. Yeah. How could he say no to something? Especially since he just became a believer like 15 minutes ago from the DNA proof. It's like, how could he say no to this? This is crazy.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, we're in the observation lounge and Worf is trying to convince Gowron to go along with this plan. He's like, it will be glorious. He's like so excited. And Gowron is like, it will be war. This is so stupid. You're smarter than this. What's wrong with you?
It's going to cause a division of faith, and it's going to tear the whole empire apart.
And also, like, no, it won't.
Gowron is the like leader of the entire Klingon empire. He's like, I'm not about to cede any power to anything, like to anybody.
To some guy who just showed up yesterday in a cave.
Why would I do that? I have everything to lose and nothing to gain.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yes. This is like the worst pitch ever because Worf's pitches, but in return,
hey Elon, just give us all your money.
Give us all your money and control of all your companies. Yeah, but you can still keep the name.
Pass on that. Yeah, you can still be Elon. Yeah,
you can still be Elon though. At the end of the day, it's like no, what? No. So
why would I do that?
There's no. Yeah, this pitch is not very strong. And Gowron is just like, Worf, this is all Korath. This is all Korath's idea because the church or whatever, the priesthood, they don't call them anything. They call them something, but I don't remember what it is. But they've never agreed with me since I've ascended to power. They've been trying to seize power for themselves. And this is the perfect thing to overthrow me. This is what it's all about. Kahless is a imposter. I don't know how, but I know he is. And I know Korath will be puppeting control of the kingdom through him. And I am not going to let go of my power. And Worf is just like, how could you say that? And about Kahless? Like, Worf is just like, not even believing it. But when Gowron says it, you're like, that actually sounds like that could be plausible.
This makes sense. To consider. Yeah. And Gowron is still doubting Kahless, and Kahless tells him some like effing parable, like a seventh parable of the episode of some man facing a storm who was killed. And Gowron is like, what was his name? What was he wearing? What color was his eyes? And Kalis can't remember anything. He's like, I don't remember. Which also, that's fair, because if you ask me about the cashier at the grocery store yesterday, I'd be like, I don't remember who helped me.
But you also wouldn't be telling a story about the cashier last week unless it was so meaningful in your life. And if it was, you would have more details to recollect. Maybe not the color of their eyes or their name, but if there was some big incident, some life-changing incident that you told the story over and over and over and over, you would have more details than I met this lady at a store once, right? You have more. So like his point is well taken where he's give me any details, any corroborating evidence whatsoever. And Kalis was just like, so anyways, like it was a long time ago. Like, okay, but the whole story was a long time ago. So then
like you brought this up.
You told the story. Yeah.
Of course, because they're Klingons. They all had to whip out knives and start fighting. And I was like, oh, God.
Right. This is what you love about the Klingons, right?
And Gowron like super easily disarms Kalis. And he's like, this is supposed to be the greatest warrior of all time. Really? And like, that's when that's when they sort of separate everyone. And Worf is like, what the F is going on? And the high priests are all talking with Kalis where they're like, we'll say that he tricked you. We'll say that he cheated. And Worf's like, but he didn't. So somebody better tell me what the F is going on.
Quiet, son of Moog. We want to hear nothing more from you. And Worf is like, you tell me immediately or I will kill you where you stand. He's just like, I don't. And Worf is so not the person to bring in on intrigue. We have discovered time and time again.
He's a zero drama kind of guy.
Yeah, he doesn't do like lying to people just to lie to people. Like that is totally not honorable. No, he's like, I saw what happened.
He does not ulterior motive ever.
He's like, I saw what happened and this isn't true. And this must not be Kalis. And it's like all the faith that he regained in the past 24 hours comes crashing down. And he wants answers and he is pissed and he has every right to be pissed because he's feeling tricked and all of this. And he's like, answer me now or I will kill you where you stand. And I was like, I like that about Worf, that he still has that like fighter spirit.
He doesn't let anybody push him around, which is nice. Now,
and he doesn't lay over. He doesn't roll over and say, okay, I'll lie with you guys.
Yeah, he does get to the heart of the matter. The high priests actually brought Kalis back using just new technology. They took that blood sample from that knife and they cloned him from the first Kalis. And then they gave him the memories and experiences of Kalis so that he can have like the wisdom to like rule and get followers and all this kind of crap.
And be really believable, which is so great. Because if somebody did that with Jesus, if they cloned him and, if they did all this, it would be, I mean, the pictures and stuff, it was so long ago that we don't have accurate, like perfectly accurate information about all the details. But let's say that happened now and we had video footage of somebody and pictures of somebody and, speeches from somebody. And we had a lot of data about them that people could actually visually see. And then you clone them like 1,000 years later and made them look exactly like that person, talk like that person, have that person's memories, remember the speeches from that person. That'd be really hard to say that person was a fraud.
That would be really hard.
I mean, this was kind of a genius plan. But not genius
but
enough.
Also big mistake to tell Worf about this because they're like, you better not tell Gowron. And he was like,
I'm going to
don't tell me what to do
right now.
Like watch me go tell him. You know what I think is really funny is when people think they can boss you around and they're like, don't say anything about this. I'm like, no. I will absolutely say whatever I want to whoever I want. I love that, they're like, if you tell Gowron, it will destroy the last hope of restoring faith to the people. I'm failing to see how any of this is my problem. It's not. I'm going to go talk to Gowron.
And really, he's not destroying the faith of the people. You are by creating this whole lie. Like you've caused the problem. You've created this fake Kalis. And the whole time they're talking, Kalis is all stunned because Kalis doesn't know he's fake. So he's not
poor Kalis.
Yeah. So he's not actually a con man.
I know he has this whole existential like crisis of like, I'm not Kalis, but like I remember
I have his memories.
Yeah, it's like
and his personality, and I look like him in the mirror. So really, this is like
sad. The poor Kalis 2.0.
The person who got it the hardest was Kalis 2.0 because his whole identity is a lie. And even his personhood is a lie. I mean,
the whole thing.
It's what a heavy thing. Like he knew who he was and he couldn't explain what just happened, but he knew who he was. And now he doesn't even know who he is. He's just a copy, like a cheap imitation.
I know.
And how do you even go from there? Like, how does he move forward in the confidence he had 10 minutes ago, now knowing that he's a copy, which is just really, really awful. But all of this is Karath's fault and the high priest's fault for creating this whole elaborate lie and trying to bring Worf in on it because of what Gowron said, because he has influence on the council and yada, yada, yada. Like, that was messed up to do to Worf. And Worf just got his faith back. He instantly loses it. You find out all this is going on. And he goes back to the holodeck cave, the recreated cave on the holodeck. And he's just like looking at the picture of Kahless and kind of like, what should I do now? Should I go tell Gowron right now? Or should I wait a few minutes? Because he's telling Gowron. That's happening.
Yeah.
But he's just like...
Sure is.
He's just standing there like, oh, what do I do now? And Data walks up to him and they have this whole conversation. And Worf tells Data that he no longer believes that this guy's the real Kahless. And but Data tells him that Gowron's men have been here waiting for Kahless to show back up for hours, like just to get another glimpse of him. And they're like really, they're believers. Their faith is there. And then Data tells the story of his existential crisis that Worf is like, you had a crisis of faith? How did you possibly have a crisis of faith? And Data says when he was first activated, he was told that he was an android, much like Kahless was just told he was a clone. Yeah. He was told that he was an android, that he was artificial, that he was just a machine. And he said he had to have a tough conversation with himself where he said, if I decide to believe that I am just a machine, then I will be limited by my programming always. Yeah. So I decided to choose instead that I'm a person. So I can grow and develop, which is just beautiful.
Yeah, that was really nice.
And Worf was like, well, how'd you decide? And he said, I just took a leap of faith. Like, I just chose it. There was no logic, no rhyme or reason. He just chose to be more. And I thought that was just a really beautiful conversation. So next thing you know, we're in the observation lounge. We've got Gowron, we've got Kahless, we've got the Korath and that other priest guy. And Worf tells Gowron the truth that Kahless is a clone. And Gowron's like, haha, told you so. I knew it. And he's like, I will put you both to death immediately. Airlock, airlock, airlock.
We are Klingons. Yeah. Oh. I know. That was, I was just thinking the We Are Farmers too. That's totally what I felt like.
So yeah. Good.
But Worf does like come up with some sort of, like a loose plan or a suggestion. Yeah. Where he's like, I think that this clone of Kahless 2.0 could lead the people in spiritual matters while Gowron has control of the High Council. And they're like, well, what do you expect we're going to do with the information? And Worf, because he's super honest and not about that drama life, he was like, we tell everyone that he's a clone. We keep it all above board and people can choose to follow him. If he brings all of the experiences and charisma and all of that crap that Kahless 1.0 had, right? This is just a different Kahless, but he is the heir to Kahless's legacy, which I was like, that's a really cool way. So then everybody just ends up being like, fine. And like, they all bend the knee and then Worf bends the knee. And I was like, okay, finally we're done. Finally, we're done with this.
But there's one more scene. We see Worf in the transporter room and sending Kahless off. I guess everyone else has already left or whatever. And they're kind of chit-chatting. And Kahless is like, what's wrong, Worf? And Worf's just like, yeah, I still don't, he still doesn't have his faith. And Kahless is like, do you think that Kahless will return? And Worf's like, I don't know. And he says, well, you know what? I think his teachings are more important than the man himself. Like, if you're following these teachings, the values and everything else, honor, all that stuff, isn't that really what matters more than that you see his face again? But it's that you live the life that he wants you to live. And Worf is like, yeah, I guess that's true. So then it goes off. It ends. It's done. We can put it behind us, Andrea. Okay. The end.
Thank you. Final thoughts?
My final thoughts were, I did not remember this episode at all. Not one single second of this episode had any morsel of recollection. But I am glad that this was not more of the Duras storyline. That was pretty much my final thought. I will say, though,
been bled dry.
I do love the Duras sisters. I think they're really fun characters, and they do come back one more time, and so I like them.
They do.
So I'm not mad at them, but I'm just the Duras storyline. The Worf is not really Klingon. Is he really Klingon? Where does he like that? I'm done with that.
The Kittimer thing, it's like
I'm done with that.
Yeah, let's just stop bringing that up because there's more to Worf than his father's like quote unquote shame. So yeah,
and his father basically.
Yeah. My final thoughts are I don't care about this episode at all, and I couldn't wait for it to be over. And just all of the like rah-ing and like whipping out, all of the like whipping out knives and like walking around really smoky fire pits and like talking about once upon a time. I don't care. next week, we're breaking down season 6, episode 24, Second Chances, which that one is always like a fan favorite. It's a favorite of mine. I can't wait to break that down. So I'm kind of I'm glad we sort of got through last week and this week that are like, they're not bad, but they're not really good either. They're not great. And like next week, I feel like is so great and so fun. And it's kind of the return of those like really meaty, fun episodes. I'm like, I can't wait to break that down. So on that note, guys, thank you so much for nerding out with us. And we'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.